Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ MV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, indeed.
Reverend Al.
Hey.
Good morning, my brother.
Good morning.
How's it going?
Good morning. I'm good. How y'all doing?
How you feeling, man? You up doing the work
good.
early this morning?
Oh, you know I did that.
You be in the gym every morning, Reverend. Now you work out 5 days a week?
I work out 7 days a week.
Wow.
Damn.
7 days a week. I get up at 4, I'm in the gym at 5. And every time I get a little tired on the elliptical, I think of Charlamagne the God, and I do another half a mile.
What time you go to
He ain't gonna
sleep?
call me old and fat ever again.
Wow.
Jeez.
What time you go to sleep?
About 10, 11. I don't need
okay.
a lot of sleep. Sleep is for folk that don't have an agenda.
Well, let's talk about that agenda right now, because there's a lot going on. Of course, we want to talk about Officer Daniel Pantaleo getting fired and the New York Police Department and police departments in general.
We had to fight just to get a man fired that was on videotape, choking a man, unarmed man to death, saying 11 times, "I can't breathe." He should have been brought to trial. They not only refused to prosecute him locally in Staten Island, they refused to prosecute him in the federal courts, even though the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department wanted to bring the civil rights charges. So after we were able to get Pantaleo fired, we went and met with the chairman of the Judiciary Committee of Congress, Congressman Jerry Nadler, and said Congress needs to change the laws to hold police more accountable. And we need to investigate what the Justice Department is doing, not only with the case of Eric Garner, but the case in Chicago, the case in Baltimore. Around the country we've seen this. We fought a case last year in Sacramento, California, Stephon Clark.
Yeah.
The state of California has a Stephon Clark law that just got passed, where police can't use deadly force unless they can prove it's totally no other options. Why isn't that federal law? So on Thursday, the 19th this week, we're having a congressional hearing with the Judiciary Committee of the House, same House committee that had Mueller, to talk about policing. And some of the victims will be there. I'm testifying. And the idea is to bring this Judiciary Committee in line to therefore go for federal laws. The laws that are set up now are too nebulous and vague to bring police to justice. We're not anti-police, but police must be held accountable. No one should be above the law.
Yeah, that seems like common sense.
Yeah.
Like unless it's completely necessary and you can prove that it was necessary, don't kill anybody.
Real
But
common
even that's
sense.
sketchy too, though, right?
Yeah, well, but we're not even at that catch.
Yeah.
And the fact is that when you have something as clear as a videotape of a guy saying I can't breathe, I mean, and there's no charges at all, and then you got a march and beg to get him fired.
Right.
I mean, what are we talking about? And if the Congress has any role at all, they're gonna have to stand up on this. That's why we're having the hearing, and I give credit to the Judiciary Committee. On that committee is Jerry Nadler's the chairman. But, AOC's on that committee, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Hakeem Jeffries. If we can get them on that committee to move this into the House, we think we can make new federal law.
Am I mistaken when it says you're the first ever you're the first person to be responsible for a full Judiciary Committee hearing around police
Well,
misconduct?
I mean, those of us that got the hearing, yeah. We've never had a hearing on this issue before the Judiciary Committee that they can recall or we can even research.
Wow.
So, and you would think with all these killings, there would have been a lot of hearings.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you're right to be checking that because it just doesn't make sense. Where have they been living?
Yeah.
We are 20 years since Rodney King, and I fought that one. And there's been no new federal law. And now we've got this man in the White House that has sent every signal with his attorney general that they're not going to do anything about policing. The first thing Jeff Sessions did, who was Trump's first attorney general, was he stopped all of the consent decrees where the federal government under Eric Holder and then Loretta Lynch would take police departments and say, no, we're taking you in essence under receivership because you have a pattern of abuse. He canceled all of that. So when Sessions he called all of us, said, I know y'all were opposed to me, but let's meet. We met, and he met us to tell us, no, I'm not going to do any of what y'all want to do. I guess he got some thrill out of telling us to our face, and that was the head of NAACP, head of Urban League. about 10 of us.
And that was Jeff Sessions who said that?
That was Jeff Sessions about 2 weeks after he was inaugurated. Now you have Barr, and Barr doesn't even meet with
Hell
folks.
no.
And it really is to no avail. That's why the Congress must act. And that's why we're excited about the possibilities of Thursday, but we don't take anything for granted.
Now, is there a fear of an appeal? Because I see the narrative that they're starting to spit. They're saying that police officers are scared to arrest people. They're scared to stop people. And we also see that he's filing for an appeal, like, file for an appeal, let it die down, and then try to get him back on the job where nobody's necessarily thinking about it anymore. Is there any fear of that?
There's always the caution of that, which is why you have to stay organized. Mm-hmm. And that is why you need groups that are going to be there in and out. What we can't have is flash pan activism where you just pop up when something happens. That's why at National Action Network, we've been there. We meet every Saturday, live on the radio. 28 years, 29th year in March. You need people that's going to be there. And, people ask me, DJ, a lot of times, why do the victims call you? One is there's somewhere to call. Right. There's offices. Mm-hmm. There's an organization. Secondly, because people want to have people that'll stay with them. The Garner family and I have been together 5 years this happened. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people are with you for the first 2 or 3 months, and life kicks in. They have to do other things. Other things move up. We are set up to do this. So to answer
is your life.
This is my whole life. Mm-hmm. And this is why I'm saying we have caution, not fear. We expect going in that there's going to be a hard fight. They're going to appeal it if we win, and we've got to be ready to go through that, and you've got to keep the family strong. Because you have to remember, none of these families volunteered to be activists. They're not trained activists. Mm. They wake up one morning, their whole world turned upside down. Mm. And they need people that have been through this to help them get through it. And then they go through the months where it goes dark. Nobody's talking about it. And they still are dealing with the grief. They're dealing with how they're going to make a living because now they have a name and who's going to hire them. And you got to be there for them. Otherwise, you shouldn't mess with folk if you're not going to help them.
So what does justice look like in this situation? Because he's not going to jail.
No. I think justice in this case, he loses his job. But if he becomes an impetus to new federal laws which correct some policing, that is the closest we can get to justice in this case.
Well, you said something earlier because you said that you've been dealing with the same stuff for 20 years. Why do you think that is? You think that sometimes we focus on these moments instead of focusing on the actual system that needs to be changed?
I think that we focus on the symptoms and the incident, and we mistaken people that are episodical event planners with activists. There's a difference between an event planner and an activist. Event planner, big march, big rally. Activists goes after changing structures and build permanent institutions, and we've got to stop being that. I tell a lot of my friends in entertainment that just because you show up at the rally and say, love the family, thank you, Jesus, and then cuss twice, don't make you an activist.
Right.
You got to be involved in some long-term kind of commitment to changing the whole pattern of where we are. Reason we remember Martin Luther King is because they changed laws,
That's right.
voting rights
That's right.
laws,
That's right.
Civil rights laws.
That's right.
Not because they had a rally.
Right.
That's
So
right.
that's why we deal with the Judiciary Committee. We have to change the laws. The things we were able to do in New York, we stopped stop and frisk. We were able to deal with racial profiling laws and different things in the country. So my thing is, let's look at the record, because the drama doesn't mean anything if it doesn't lead to some systematic change.
What did you think about Jay-Z and his meeting with the NFL? What were your thoughts?
I have not talked to him, and I have nothing but respect for Colin Kaepernick. And my personal choice and the choice of National Action Network is I won't deal with the NFL until Colin Kaepernick has a job. What Jay-Z's trying to do, I'm not going to down him because I don't know what it is. But that was his choice. And I remember last time I was here, Charlamagne, the God, said to me, Jay-Z did a line against you in the one of his raps.
444.
So I could shoot back. I'm not going to do that because what he's doing could be fine. Mm-hmm. And I got 99 problems. Jay-Z ain't one of them.
Okay.
You've been working on that ball.
You've been working on that ball. Yeah, that ball already.
But you know what's interesting? You mentioned Martin Luther King Jr. When I was younger, I used to always love the radicals, and I still love the radicals. The Nation of Islam, Malcolm X,
Right.
Elijah Muhammad, Mr. Farrakhan. But as I've gotten older, I realized, man, the person who actually made systemic change was Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was on their ass. He showed up everywhere. He had meetings with people that people would call him an Uncle Tom and a coon and a sellout for, but he actually got things done.
No, they would call him a sellout on one side, and then the others would give him hell when he would meet with the radicals on the other side. Yeah. And by me growing up in the North, I was born and raised in Brooklyn. The town was Malcolm's town up here, and being a boy preacher, my mother put me in the King movement because she didn't want me to leave the church. So most of the guys with the school with me, I was a sellout. I was a Tom. But then we were the ones that built the movement. Most of them didn't end up staying in the movement or ended up getting hurt. And they were in more radical movements. But Dr. King used to say, you need the thesis and the antithesis and come to a synthesis. And that's what you need, the radicals and you need the moderates. And then you need to find some common ground to see who really wants to get something done. And that's what King was about. I never will forget Charlamagne, Stokely Carmichael, who died, Kwame Ture.
He was a radical.
He led the Black Power movement. He came by my office about 2 years before he died. And he said, you know something, Reverend Al, I know you grew up in the King tradition. I was too young to know Dr. King, Jesse Jackson and Bill Jones raised me. And he said, I want you to know when Dr. King got killed, he said, I cried like a member of his family. I said, really? And all the names y'all called him? He said, because I never thought about it. When we'd attack him, call him sellout and all that, he never responded. He said, one day I said to him, Dr. King, we used the march and we knew you were going to be at to start screaming Black Power to help make it well known. And I just want you to know we used you. He said, he patted me on the back and said, Stokely, I've been used before. Just don't do the people wrong. He said, I really realized he loved the people. He just loved them differently. And we've got to appreciate, as we were kidnapped from Africa 400 years this year, we were different tribes. We always had different tribes, but it was one country. And we all don't have to do the same thing. Stay in your lane, do what you do, and let's all get to the same place. So you may be on the left lane, I may be on the right lane, somebody in the middle lane, but we're all headed the same place. There's only going to be an accident if we start crossing lanes and telling each other how to roll.
And you know what else, too? You mentioned Stokely Carmichael. If you watch King in the Wilderness, him and Martin Luther King Jr. was marching together.
That's correct.
And like reporters would be interviewing both of them at the same time, and they had two different views, but they had that one goal.
That's right. And like the three sisters that started the hashtag Black Lives Matter, they come to my conventions, and I go to their stuff because they have their approach. I have mine. We use media, we use marching, we use protest. They use what they use, but it's all moving to the same thing. I was at the Congressional Black Caucus. And I told him, I said, people who criticize me, all Al Sharpton want is publicity. That's exactly what I want. Right. Don't nobody call me to keep a secret. Eric Garner's mother didn't call me and said, I want to tell you something now, but keep it down low. They choked my son to death, the police. She called me to get publicity. That's what I do.
And that's how things happen.
Right. That's how
if people don't know about it, how can anybody act on anything?
If you don't put the spotlight on something, nobody's going to react. It's not like these people are going to do what's right. You've got to expose it. And I learned all my career to keep the spotlight on it. I know I'm going to take the flack, but if I could keep the spotlight on it. And I didn't learn that at Brooklyn College Political Science. I learned that because we had roaches. If you kept the light on in the kitchen, the roaches wouldn't come out.
What is the civil rights movement today? Because I'm not sure we got one.
I think that the civil rights movement today is having pressure on the electoral process. If we can get people out to vote, the biggest civil rights issue that I think a lot of people is missing is that if we do not get rid of this present president, we are not talking about Democrat or Republican. We're talking about the possibility that he can appoint one or two more people on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
If you've got a 7-2 or 6-3 vote in the Supreme Court, you will lose voting rights. You will lose women's right to choose Roe versus Wade. You will use LGBTQ rights, immigration rights. This is about really canceling the last 50 years, which you referred to, Dr. King, of where we are. This is serious.
It's fascism.
We gone right back to fascism. Forget about police reform. If they can stack at least one or two more seats in the Supreme Court, which is appointed by the president, all of that is reversed. And that is more important than is Joe Biden too old or whether Liz Warren has got on the right thing or is Kamala got on the right pantsuit. We're talking about our literal freedom. And I think that any gearing at all around civil rights has to be around salvaging what we've already achieved saving it, and then trying to go forward.
Here's the problem. Like, we talking about the election. We telling people to go out there and vote in 2020. The elections are compromised. We know that. We know it's Russian interference. We know it's voter suppression. Mitch McConnell blocked the election security bill. How do we even know the fight's going to be fair in 2020?
The only way we're going to be able to win is we have to have overwhelming numbers that they can't stop. How do we do it? The same way we did it in 2008 and in 2012 with Barack Obama. Mm-hmm. It is, in my opinion, it does not make sense to ask, can we win when we showed we could? But what we didn't do is after we won in 2008 and 2012 is change that.
Right.
Block the hacking, block the security. We won and we went to sleep.
Yes.
A lot of people never left the inaugural ball after Barack won and just
stayed
relaxed,
at the White House.
Stayed at it.
Party.
And then when stuff started happening, Trayvon happened and Eric Garner, all that under Barack, and those that was in the street, they was out there, we don't need to do that no more. Yes, we did. They went to sleep. And while they caught us sleeping, Donald Trump happened. Trump couldn't have happened if we had stayed on our post.
But they're not making enough noise. Like, we need an election security bill passed.
That's right.
Mitch McConnell already blocked one. Why? Because they benefit from it.
They benefit from it. They changed the election sites. They purged the rolls. We have to be dealing with all of that now. Mm-hmm. And that one of the things National Action Network is doing, we're gearing up now to deal with all of this in a decentralized way. We have in our regional conference, we're trying to build up 1 million people that support us. People can go to our site, www.nationalactionnetwork.net, because you're right. They're going to try to compromise us, but we have to have such overwhelming numbers. The reason Obama won is the numbers were so high they couldn't
Everybody,
steal
people
enough.
who never voted before went out and voted.
They hacked in. Mm-hmm. They stole in, but it was too many. We have to have those kind of numbers. But this time, we can't go to sleep in victory.
I think it's too late, Reverend, now.
I don't think so.
I'm going to tell you why. Donald Trump has already appointed 150 federal judges. Lifetime. Like, the ramifications of that is going to be dealt with for generations to come.
Absolutely. But what you don't want to do is let him get to 300 or 400. I think you're absolutely right. But I think that he stays there, he's going to double that or more. Because Donald Trump is telling you straight out what he's going to do. He ain't sugarcoating it.
He ain't leaving.
At all.
He's not leaving the White House.
I'm telling you, we got to go for it, all we know.
When you think about our candidate, right, do you think about who can beat Donald Trump, or do you think about who would be our best candidate?
I think of both. Mm-hmm. I think that you've got to have the one that really speaks to our issues and understands us, that has our heart and our mind in terms of they identify with it, but that can also win. I don't want somebody that makes me feel good but can't win.
Is that the same person to you right now, you think?
Right now, I haven't decided which one. I've gone to every debate. And I'm sitting there watching, and because I ran and I had to go through 32 debates, I'm looking at who got the skills on the stage, who's got the right kind of positions, who's saying something that I feel they really mean. And I haven't decided yet, but I know we've got to come up with a consensus candidate.
And I don't think it's Joe Biden.
Well, Joe Biden, I don't know if he's going to be the nominee. People talk about Joe's old, but you got 3 or 4 more. Liz Warren is 70 years old.
Yeah.
Bernie's older than Joe Biden. They're all older than me. Mm-hmm. And Charlamagne, God thinks I'm old, even though I get up earlier than him and work out. They're all older than me.
Trump is old. One time,
Trump is old.
That's my guy,
man. We just need to box one time, Rev. I think you can take him. I got my money on you, Rev. Box him just one time.
Charlamagne the God.
Yeah, Rev got that OG strength though. Do you think candidates are finally coming with a clear-cut agenda for black people?
I think that they are getting there. They weren't there. And that's why I think that when I wake up and they come to our forum at National Action Network and I see them all one by one coming in the Breakfast Club, they know that they're not coming to places that we ain't going to ask the hard questions.
That's right.
And I think that the fact that the paradigm has shifted, we're the outsiders. We were the outsiders of civil rights. Y'all were the outsiders in media and broadcast. And they have to come there means they recognize there's a new game in town. And the game is not a game to play, a game to be serious. And that will force them to have a black agenda because you are not afraid to say black.
That's right.
Before y'all, people were afraid to identify black. People were afraid to even bring up radicals. We are... The difference that I think it is, as you know, I was raised in part by James Brown. The difference is that a lot of our artists, including hip-hop artists, went mainstream. We made mainstream go black. That's the difference.
Right.
I made them come to me. in political terms. I ain't changed my style, my hair. I still lead marches. I had access to Obama, still led the Trayvon Martin marches and all that. We made them come us, and that's what y'all did. Y'all had the same style, same rhythm, same kind of. Charlamagne the God ain't no different now than he was when he come out of South Carolina, and people saying, why has he got that little Southern accent? Who's that guy? Now he's all over. I wake up in the middle of the night, go to the bathroom. He sit up there with the big late night talk shows. Who would have ever thought? If you don't believe there was a God, look at his career.
They say God bless babies and fools, right? You think the Democrats are spending too much time fighting each other?
Yeah, I do. I think that they are spending too much energy fighting each other, and they get their crowds into fighting each other rather than say, this is my position, this person say, that's my position, let's choose the best one. But the objective is not only Trump, is to save where we are. I mean, do you realize they got babies in cages at the border? And we run around talking about who part of the hair on the right side of their head. They got babies in cages. There's the real issues we ought to be dealing with.
Who are you leaning towards? Who do you like? I know you don't necessarily say right now.
I like a lot of them. I like a lot of them.
Which ones?
But I have not chosen which one I think says it all.
Well, who do you like for what reason? Like, who do you like? I like this person's this way. I like this person's policy.
I like Mayor Pete. I think Mayor Pete has a lot of substance. I think he's sincere. He's very much comfortable in his own skin. I like people like that. I like Kamala. I think she's bright. I think she's committed. I think she's come with some very good criminal justice stuff. I think Bernie is a true believer. I mean, he wake up in the middle of the night in the middle of a speech. I mean, that's who he is. I respect Joe Biden. Joe Biden worked well with Obama. Liz Warren's on fire. Liz Warren, you can't count out. She's passionate. I watched at our convention, a crowd that was not on her side, she turned them around. Right. So I like a lot of them. The question is not who I like. The question is, do I like myself? Everything that I've lived for is at stake, and everything everybody listening to us lives for is at stake. Who can deliver? That's what I'm going to deal with.
Black people say they would never vote for Senator Harris because she was a prosecutor.
Well, the fact is that whether they vote for her or not, whoever the president is going to appoint the attorney general, which is a prosecutor. So what are we talking about? I'm not going to vote for somebody because they were a prosecutor, even though I'm going to vote for somebody who's going to appoint the prosecutor. That makes sense?
Not at all.
Could you see yourself in order to, we talk about changing legislation. Could you see yourself sitting down with Donald Trump to push something together if you felt like it could be beneficial for us?
When Donald Trump was elected, he called me a month later and invited me to Mar-a-Lago. And I said I would only meet with him if I could bring the other leaders of National Civil Rights Organization. He said, no, I know you, Al. You've marched with me to Central Park 5 and all that. But, he used to go to Tyson fights, and I'd see him and all that. He said, I only meet with you. I said, I'm not coming. I'm not doing the photo op. There is no circumstance that I could think of I would meet with Donald Trump. I'm not looking for a meeting. I am looking for him to be defeated. He is totally committed to everything that we have fought for. There is nothing in my mind that will turn him around because he is a transactional guy. And he's already made his deal with the NRA. He's already made his deal with the right wing that is anti-voting rights, anti-civil rights, anti-police reform. So the only one that could benefit from that kind of meeting is he'd look like he's reaching out, and I would look like I've lost my mind.
And what scares me the most, man, is I keep hearing everybody say that Democrats have to win in a landslide. I don't think it's going to be a landslide. And then you got Barr heading the DOJ. You know they're going to challenge it. It's going to go to the courts. And Trump gonna stay right in there. And then, like you said, you had a couple more Supreme Court judges. You changed the Constitution. He ain't leaving.
Yeah. No, what we've got to deal with is we've got to deal with mass numbers coming out, and we've got to take these state legislators because a lot of this is going to also change state by state. What we just did with the Stephon Clark law in California, a lot of it is state by state. And if we can do that, we can make change. We can't give up.
Right.
And
we don't want people to be discouraged from voting.
Right. We can't at one time say we need change and then not be willing to do the hard work. We think it's hard on us. Think how hard it was for the Dr. King era. Yeah. Think of how hard it was. I mean, they were killing them outright just for asking for the right to vote. So every time I get discouraged, Charlamagne, I think about what Dr. King went through. Mandela went to jail 27 years.
That's right.
And I was in Johannesburg the night he won the election as an election observer. So I know you can win.
Right.
Even in the midst of hopelessness, if you don't give out. We're tougher than them. When we talk about 1619 to 2019, 400 years, Remember this, Charlamagne the God, that the people that they enslaved, they kidnapped us, took our names, broke up our families, as they came across the Atlantic, that most of them, 2 million some count, died and their bones at the bottom of the Atlantic, which means only the strongest got here. We're the children of the strongest. We are the heirs of the ones that could take the storms, the rain, the torrential things that happen across the Atlantic. So how do we get weak now when we came out of the ones that could survive the worst?
Right.
It's going to take more than a tweet to take us down.
And
What
that's
did you think
exactly
about-
what they want, us to feel hopeless enough that we don't go and vote.
Then
It
you
doesn't
beat
matter
yourself.
anyway.
If you lose hope, you beat yourself.
Yeah, I
you
don't
think
want us to
about
feel
the-
hopeless. I just want people to tell the truth.
Right. I agree with that.
We're not telling the truth about what's really going on.
No, if you don't know what you stacked up against, you won't know the fight. But once you know what you stacked up
There you
against,
go.
as you say the truth, then you go in and be determined to deal with it.
Now, in our community, what do we want to see? What are we looking for the next president to look to help us? What do we need?
We want, first and foremost, the next president to deal with economic justice. We want a fair shot from not only jobs, but contracts. Let me give you an example. You look at pension funds.
Correct.
They take your pension if you work for the city or state or federal government, if you're in a union. The union fighting right now, UAW against General Motors. They put the pension funds, which ends up billions of dollars, give it to money managers. They're mostly white money managers. Those money managers lend money to developers that gentrify our community.
Correct.
So in essence, grandma is financing the removal of herself from her own community.
And her family, that's correct.
We need to deal with the economic politics without economics is just civics. We need political power so that we can build financial institutions, that we can deal with issues in our community of home ownership and real wealth and opportunities, and then we could create jobs. Why aren't the unions using the pension funds with black money managers who are committed in advance that I'm going to give business loans in our community? How do I walk around Harlem or Fort Greene or Brownsville and you've got all of these cafes where they sit out on the sidewalk sipping mint tulips where we used to have to run down the sidewalk because they can get investment, they have access to capital,
right.
and it's our money. That's what politics must be wedded to economics. And we need a new criminal justice system where we are protected under the law, where we're not suspects but looked upon as prospects.
And what did you think about them banning e-cigarettes so fast? And when you talk about the problems we have in this country with guns, but it's been taking them years to even talk about that. But that cigarette, immediately.
We've had mass killings as late as El Paso and Dayton. You still can't get a ID bill through. But they can take e-cigarettes out because it's affecting their kids. And once they come with the other part, my fear is, do you end up with an Eric Garner if you start banning everything? Because you're going to have a black market on this. So I want to see where the criminal justice side of this is going to go. We have got to look at the fact that, again, they use power to protect business interests.
Word.
All right. Well,
All
Reverend
right.
Al, we
Reverend Al.
appreciate you for joining us. Tell them how they can get in contact with you one more time.
www.nationalactionnetwork.net, www.nationalactionnetwork.net. And Thursday, we'll be on the Hill. People can come. Let's crowd it out, and let's stand up and make the Congress do something at these congressional hearings.
All right. Well, it's Reverend Al. It's the Breakfast Club. Good morning.
All right.